to this video. My name is David and I've been playing Fantasy Premier League for about the past 10 seasons. And in all that time I've been absolutely rubbish. I've never managed to get anywhere near the top. So this season I decided to do something different and I analysed some of the very best players in the game. I used two samples. The first one is those people who've won Fantasy Premier League in previous seasons. They're in a mini-league called Fantasy Champions League, and I analysed the strategies that they used. And then I looked at a second sample, the very top 10 players from this year's competition. Now don't forget, there were over 7 million players worldwide this year. So to finish in the top 10 means that they probably know the game a lot better than you or I. So, in this video I'm going to do two things. I'm going to look firstly at how to choose your captain, and secondly how to use your chips. There'll be a second video that will talk a lot more about transfers and formations. So, without further ado, let's look at the captains. Amongst the world's top players, more than a quarter of all the points they scored across the season came from this one player alone. So how do you choose the right captain? Well, the top players seem to choose from a very small group of elite players. In the past season, amongst the top 10 players, over 80% of their captain choices came from just 4 players. Mohamed Salah, Bruno Fernandes, Harry Kane and Kevin De Bruyne. And it's a very similar story amongst the previous winners. Nearly 65% of their captain choices were from just those 4 players alone. And if you add in Heung-min Son, the figure rises to over 80%. But what if we go outside the norm? What if we make a maverick pick? A Patrick Bamford, a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or heaven forbid, even a goalkeeper. Is that going to pay off in the long run? Well, the evidence suggests no. I analysed the points scored by the top players when they made a choice from the top 4 captains compared with a more maverick choice. And you can see there that only 7 of the 16 players did better by choosing a player outside of the norm. For the majority, 9 out of 16, they were worse off. So the message seems to be clear. If even the very best players in the game are no better off by choosing a captain outside of that small elite group, probably for you and me, it's not going to pay off either. Choose the same captain every week? Some people suggest that you just pick one very good player and nominate them as your captain every single week. I analysed this. The highest scoring player last season was Bruno Fernandes. He scored 244 points across the season, meaning you would have scored 488 points if you just captained him every single week, even regardless of the triple captain. Now, when I analysed how does this compare with the points scored by the captain for our leading players, you'll see that for this year's top 10 players, it fell well short of their actual captain points. So the strategy doesn't seem to work. Instead, you're better off alternating your captain between just a few elite players and choosing the captain each week based on the fixture that they have and the form that they're in. In that way, you're going to maximise your captain points. As you know, FPL has various chips that you can use at different points in the season. First of all, there are the wild cards. And these allow you to change your entire squad without any penalty at all. And you get 2 of these, one to be played in the first half of the season, one in the second. The other 3 chips can only be played once a season, so once you've played it, it's gone. The first is the triple captain, and when you play this, the points of your captain are tripled for that particular week, rather than doubled, which is usually the case. You have your bench boost, in which the players on your bench are included in your overall points total, and you have your free hit, which allows you to change your entire squad for one particular week, and then the following week it reverts back to your previous squad. So how do we use these chips, and when do we use them? Let's take a look at what the very best managers did. Every season I spend hours fretting about when I should play the wild card. Is it too soon? Should I keep it in my pocket? And I expected to find that the very best players delayed using their wild card until as late as possible. But that wasn't the case at all. Even amongst the very, very best players in the game, a lot of them used the wild card early. In fact, 8 of the 16 people that I analysed it used the wild card within the first 5 weeks. And the wild card doesn't seem to be related to the number of fixtures in that particular week either. The first wild card is very much a panic chip. Whenever you realise you've just got the wrong squad, that you don't have the players performing particularly well, that's the time to press the panic button and play the chip. Don't be afraid to use it early. Even the best players do that. Now, by contrast, the second wild card seems to be played very much in relation to the number of fixtures coming up. So if you have a double game week or a week with a reduced number of fixtures, that's the time to play it. For example, week 26 was the largest game week of the past season. There were 17 fixtures in that particular week, and we had 5 of our sample who played their second wild card either that week or the week immediately before it. Equally, 2 of the sample, or 2 of this season's top 10, played the wild card in game week 18 when there were only 6 fixtures, and big teams like Chelsea and Liverpool didn't play. On the other hand, we've also got 6 of the sample who played their second wild card in game week 31, when there were only the normal number of fixtures. Now, the idea here seems to be just to set up the team for the final run of fixtures, when it's much more predictable who you're going to need in your team. So there's 2 strategies, but either way you need to have a good idea of what fixtures are coming up. Now, you can do that either by going on the FPL website and looking at the fixture difficulty rating, the FDR, or Ben Krellin does a wonderful spreadsheet showing when fixtures are likely to be played. Here's the link to it, and I really recommend that you get on the list and use that every single week. Remarkable consistency about when and how our top players use this chip. All but one of them used this chip in a week when there were fewer than normal fixtures, predominantly in game week 18 and 29, when there were only 6 and 4 fixtures respectively. Now, only one of the sample went against this trend. This was Ala Al-Sharif, who finished in 8th place this year. And he used the chip as a way of maximising points during a double game week. He used it in week 35 and saved it till the end. Is that a better strategy? Well, he did very well that particular game week. He scored 141 points, which was more than any of the other members of our sample. But overall, if you look at it across the 3 game weeks, he didn't do any better than the other players. So it seems to be really a matter of choice, and the majority of players use the free hit in a week when there are far fewer fixtures. The FA Cup 5th round day is a very, very good time to play it, because you know for sure that then many of the big teams are going to be in the FA Cup and they won't have a fixture that week. So that's how to play the free hit. Now this chip is very much tied to double game weeks, particularly if one of those elite players that we spoke about earlier has favourable fixtures. And there was a real consistency in how the top players used this chip. In fact, 6 of this year's top 10 players all chose to triple captain Harry Kane in game week 26 when Spurs had fixtures against Fulham and Burnley. Unfortunately, Kane only collected 8 points during that particular week, and there were actually 12 other game weeks when he would have scored more points had you triple captained him. So again, even the very best players can get it wrong. This again is another chip that seems to be played during the double game weeks. And it's probably no surprise that 14 of the 16 people in our sample played their bench boost in the 3 game weeks that had the greatest number of fixtures. But did they always make the best use of the bench boost? Not necessarily. There was actually a huge variation, with 5 of our sample scoring 10 points or less from the bench boost. On the other hand, one of our players, second place Mohamed Abdallah, he scored an incredible 70 points from his bench boost. Get this, he had Pope, who scored 13 points, Soufal, who scored 12, Stones, who scored 27, and Antonio, who scored 18. Not bad for a bench boost, eh? Well done. So in this video, we've looked at how to choose your captain and how and when to use your different chips. Join us again for part 2, when we're going to look at how to make transfers and what formations you should choose for your team. See you in part 2.